Sean. On Thursday, a little after 5 o'clock in the evening, I walked down the hallway to Jerry's office and looked in his door. "Is he there?" I asked Polly, his secretary. She smiled and said, "Yes, Sean, come in. He's alone and finally free of his phone." "Thanks, Polly. I just need a minute." I walked past her desk and pushed open the door to Jerry's office. Almost a copy of mine, it was a very large, open room with a desk, a conference table, and a long leather sofa. The coffee table was huge and was now littered with open files and boxes of documents. Jerry was working on an embezzlement case by an employee who had been with the company long enough to know all the moves and had been doing so for about 10 years. Jerry was representing the employee and knew he had a difficult road ahead of him to get the jury to sympathize with his client. "Hi, Jerry. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I think I have a bad cold and I have a terrible headache. Every bone in my body hurts. I'm leaving early today. There shouldn't be any problems since I got everything in order. Janie can do it. Deal with any issues if they arise." He looked up with a frown on his face and said, "I hope you get better soon, Sean, but I certainly won't notice. This damn thing is killing me, so you'll probably find me face down when you get back." With these words, he waved his hand for me to leave and returned to his business. I closed the door and went to my office. I cleared everything off my desk, left all my open files with Janie, my secretary, and told her to give me the opportunity to die in peace at home. She simply smiled and pushed me to leave the office. Jerry and I opened our own private defense practice after working for one of the largest law firms in Mobile, Alabama. Both felt that we were not moving forward at the firm and discussed this for some time. 10 months ago, we took the plunge and opened Ritter and Ballard Lawyers, Inc. I was Sean Ballard. We rented a large, old 2-story house downtown and borrowed enough money to renovate it and make it our own. We had enough space on the second floor for 3 more lawyers, and we each had a spacious office on the first floor. Besides Jerry and myself, we had 2 receptionist clerks, and we already had more clients than we could handle. Our startup debts were paid off, and we were finally turning a profit, so we interviewed several young attorneys and decided to hire 2, allowing our practice to grow. Jerry and I would be the senior partners, and the others would work for us until we brought in enough new clients to buy out the practice. Now that we were operating profitably, we could set the value of the business and new employees could buy shares. Life was good. I was married to a beautiful girl whom I loved all my life. Her name was Souldad, but sometimes I called her Sunny. Do you know Souldad or Saul from the word son, hence Sunny? I hadn't taken a day off in over a year, and Sunny had been asking me to take one for a long time. I had been putting it off until we had established our practice, but now seemed like a good time to talk about the holidays with Jerry. Most of my tasks were not urgent, and I could take some time. A trip without JJ seemed like a good idea, and I thought we both needed to spend time together. Although I loved my son, he was restless, and Sunny and I rarely had time for each other. I got into the car and drove home. I felt terrible, but I wanted the peace and quiet of my soft bed so I could die or at least feel like I would survive. We lived in the South Baldwin Gulf Shore area, and our house was too big for us, but we thought it was a good investment. We had a mortgage of over $300,000, but I was now making enough to cover it, and Souldad adored the house. She became an important figure in the local women's club and seemed to prosper because of it. Her activities and contacts were useful for business, so I maintained her interest. I was less pleased with her choice of friends, but she was happy, so I accepted it as a given. Her 2 best friends were Judy Cabo, about our age and divorced from her second husband, and Carol Jennings, who I learned had been left by her husband after 7 years of marriage for cheating. Both had prenuptial agreements that left them in a good position, so Carol wasn't too worried about it and laughed in my face when I expressed regret about her divorce. When I mentioned to Souldad that she was the only married woman in the group, she simply smiled and patted me on the knee, telling me not to worry. I arrived home around 7:30, 2 or 3 hours earlier than usual, and pulled into the garage. Sunny's car was not there, but Lucy's car was there. Lucy was our full-time babysitter and often babysat JJ. When I came in, I asked her where my wife was, and she said she didn't know exactly, but that Souldad had left a number and said she would be back by 9. I looked at the number but didn't recognize it. Then I suddenly remembered that she had a women's club meeting on Thursdays, and it was probably a hotel downtown where they met. She usually returned home by 8:30 or 9 o'clock after these meetings. Even though I felt terrible, I let Lucy go after I paid her for the entire evening with a tip and confirmed that JJ, our 1-year-old son, was fast asleep. He would sleep until the morning, and I could just go to bed after a hot shower and a hot drink. I wasn't sure what I wanted first, so I made a drink and took it with me to the bedroom. I showered, dried off, made one final round to check on JJ, finished my drink, and went to bed. I fell asleep instantly and did not hear Souldad come into the bedroom. Souldad. I wasn't sure why I did it, but when Jason invited me to dinner, I said yes. The women's club meeting was very productive and ended about 15 minutes ago, but I stuck around to talk to Jason. We were chatting about nothing in particular, and suddenly he invited me to dinner. He suggested we eat at the hotel restaurant since he didn't have a car. He said he didn't need it because he had a room for today and the hotel shuttle would take him to the airport tomorrow. I tried to convince myself that this was a bad idea, but I was bored, and Sean was staying late again, as usual, and the only thing I would do was spend another evening alone. JJ was with Lucy, our nanny, and he would have been asleep by the time I got home. I had to admit that Jason was nice to look at. He was single and alone in town. So what's wrong with two single people spending a harmless evening having dinner and hoping for a good conversation? At dinner, I was pleasantly surprised. Jason was a great dinner partner, witty, smart, and easy to talk to. He was a great listener, and I found myself telling him things I wouldn't tell anyone else, not even my best friends. I told him about Sean and Jerry and their new partnership, and the time Sean was spending trying to make it successful. I admitted that we discussed it, and I was part of the decision, knowing that I would have to sacrifice time with Sean. He listened and expressed sympathy, but said that he could not deny himself so much time with such a beautiful woman like me. Naturally, I was flattered and a little carried away by his compliments. We had a bottle of red wine with dinner and another while chatting afterwards. I had a pleasant feeling of slight intoxication, which allowed me to relax and enjoy. During coffee, he moved closer to me, commenting that the restaurant had become crowded and very noisy. I didn't object when he sat closer to me. I pretended not to notice when our knees touched. I felt a flash of pleasure followed by a rush of embarrassment. He didn't seem to notice, but I did. Apparently, the wine made me a little reckless. As we sat and talked, he suggested we go to the bar and have a drink after dinner. At first, I refused, but eventually I agreed as he continued to persuade me. I followed him, taking his hand, and we walked from the restaurant to the bar. Since it was still early, the bar wasn't crowded, so he chose a booth in the back corner. It was dark, even this early, when I slid into the seat. I expected him to sit opposite me, but he surprised me by sitting next to me. I moved to the edge of the seat, but he just moved closer. As we settled in, I felt the warmth of his thigh against mine and his hand still holding mine under the table. I was about to say something when the waitress came over to take my order. He ordered something for both of us, and the waitress left. He smiled at me and leaned down to kiss my hair. I trembled, but did not move away. He was still holding my hand. When the drinks arrived, Jason pushed one towards me, and I immediately took it, trying to hide my excitement. I took a sip and thought it was a little spicy for a plain ginger ale, but took a long gulp to moisten my dry mouth and throat. I thought about pulling my hand away, but I have to admit, it felt nice the way he held my hand. I liked the warmth of his hand on mine. While thinking about this, I took another sip of my drink. I started to relax and felt a warm feeling in my stomach, probably because of the charming man next to me. He kissed me. I pulled my hand away and pressed myself into the corner, wrapping my arms around myself. I couldn't look at Jason sitting next to me, and I started to really shake. This cannot be reality. It can't be. I am a married woman, and I have no right to be in this situation. I remembered who I was with, and it sobered me up instantly. Jason, please let me go. I need to leave right now. It was wrong to go to that bar with you, and I need to leave. I have a child waiting for me at home, and I need to go back there. Please let me go. I started to panic, and Jason saw it in my eyes. He was confused by the turn of events and tried to find a way to calm me down without letting me go. I suspected he wasn't done with me and had plans. I'm sorry, Souldad. I think things got out of control, and it's my fault. I never wanted you to do anything you weren't comfortable with. Here, have a drink to calm down. You can't leave like this. You need to calm down and come to your senses to drive safely. Please calm down and drink this. Jason stepped back and placed a light hand on my shoulder, trying to coax me. He held the ginger ale he ordered for me, urging me to take a sip. His, which looked identical, came with vodka. I gave him a panicked look, but took the drink from his hand and drank half of it in one gulp. I coughed, but held him back. This seemed to calm me down almost immediately. I continued drinking the rest and finally finished it with a grimace. I fell back into the seat and my breathing began to calm down. My face began to cool and I finally fell silent. Jason looked at me with interest as I calmed down, then signaled to the waitress for another lap. He drank his drink first. When the drinks arrived, I immediately grabbed mine and took a long sip of what I thought was just ginger ale. I was confused as I was clearly drunk and my inhibitions were gone again. After a few minutes, I started laughing quietly. I looked at him with disappointment when he removed my hand. He held my hand, calling the waitress. Obviously, he wanted to move me to a better place, the one place where we could do more than just that. I took my drink and finished it. By then, I was clearly drunk and my inhibitions were gone. I started to pull my hand away, trying to free myself, but he held it until the waitress finished with the check. He looked at the amount, added a good tip, and threw the money on the table. He picked me up and led me out of the bar. I silently followed him into the foyer, but when Jason tried to pull me to the right towards the elevators, I pulled to the left towards the outer foyer and the doors leading to the parking lot. Come with me, Souldad. You need to go up to my room so you can lie down and rest until it's safe to travel. He pulled, but I resisted. I knew I couldn't go to his room, but I wasn't sure why. But if I could walk to my car, I'd be fine. I'm fine and I want to go to my car. I need to go to JJ's house. I'll go here. With these words, I broke away and went to the parking lot. Jason hesitated for a moment, then followed me. He probably thought that if I didn't go to his room, he would see what would happen in the parking lot or in my car. Poor people cannot be selective. He caught up with me and took my hand so that I wouldn't trip over the parked cars. I knew where I was going, so I didn't hesitate. I walked to the back of the parking lot, and there was my Lincoln Town car. I screamed with satisfaction and quickened my pace. Jason walked with me until we reached the car. As soon as we got there, I seemed to run out of energy. The car was my only goal, and in my drunken state I had reached it, but now I just stood there, looking at Jason. I was so tired. Jason asked for the keys, and I simply handed him my purse. He took it, found the key, and opened the door. He threw my purse on the front seat, but by then I was leaning on the front fender. I couldn't keep my eyes open, and Jason must have thought I was dreaming. Jason apparently decided to take the chance and approached me. The parking lot was empty, and where we were standing was dark, so we couldn't be seen by anyone entering the parking lot. He approached me, taking advantage of my drunken state, and he had sex with me. When he stepped back, I saw his face and realized that it was Jason, not Sean. I just let another man have sex with me. Jason looked at my face. I stood there, hugging myself and looking at the ground. As he looked at me, I finally realized my condition and, shuddering, pulled up my bra, turned away from him, buttoned up my blouse, and tucked it into the waistband of my skirt. Oh my God, Souldad, it was incredible. I wanted to do this all day. It was pure torture to look at you and want you so much. I'm so glad you agreed to have dinner with me and stayed after. It wasn't like that. what I was planning. I wanted to take you to my room where we would be more comfortable, but apparently neither of us could wait. If you want, we can go there now." I turned sharply to him, my face stained with tears. I turned around to cry, but he didn't notice. He looked shocked and a little scared. He knew that I was drunk and uninhibited, but maybe he didn't think that I would do what we just did if I wasn't ready. He looked at me warily until I stepped away from the car. "Jason, please go away and leave me alone. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake that I'll have to deal with myself. I don't blame you, so don't worry. Nobody's going to arrest you or anything. You got it, what you wanted, and that's all. Please go away and leave me alone." I went to the car door and opened it. I no longer showed signs of intoxication, and I was quite capable of driving myself home. Jason decided it was best to leave, while I was inclined to blame myself rather than him. And I was right. He got what he wanted. He probably thought it would be nice to see me again, but it seemed like a good time to leave while he was ahead. Without another word, he turned and walked towards the hotel lobby and his room. After Jason left, I just sat in the car, looking at my reflection in the rearview mirror. What the hell did I just do? What was I thinking? Going to dinner and a bar with Jason. I just slept with him in the parking lot of a downtown hotel and cheated on my husband. What the hell got me? What about my marriage? What about my husband and my son? What if he finds out? The desire I felt when I walked out to the car disappeared, and the last of the alcohol was consumed by my panic. I was now as sober as possible. I finally noticed the time. It's already 9:45. I told Lucy I'd be home by 9 o'clock. What about Sean? He should have been home by now. I started the car and drove home as quickly as possible. I needed to go home, and I needed to get myself cleaned up before Sean saw me. I couldn't let him know what happened. He is not the kind of person who could accept cheating, since he himself would never do anything that could jeopardize our life together. I knew this deep down in my soul. While I was driving, I remembered our conversation about a year ago. We then decided together that Sean would go into partnership with Jerry to start his own law firm. We discussed the hours Sean would need to work, and I agreed that it would be better for us in the future if we did it now while JJ is still little. I promised to be understanding with my time and do my part by keeping the house in order, keeping JJ happy and healthy, and keeping track of all our household bills and obligations. He would keep the weekends free just for my son and me, and he and Jerry would hire young lawyers who could gradually take over the workload. I promised to be a loyal and valuable part of our team. I agreed with Sean to build a better life for all of us. I had just violated the most basic requirement of our marriage and our commitment to building a future. I betrayed Sean. As I pulled into the driveway, I had a moment of panic when I saw Sean's car. Just as I feared, he was home. Why did he need to be on time just when I most needed him to be late? I slammed the door and ran into the house. Sean was gone, and neither was Lucy. I was desperate. What's happening? I ran upstairs to JJ's room and found him fast asleep. So Lucy put him to bed and left when Sean came home. It made sense. But where is Sean? I walked down the hallway to our bedroom and found Sean sleeping. Why did he go to bed so early? He usually goes to bed much later than me. I walked up to him and shook him to wake him up, asking him what he was doing at home. Sean simply mumbled that he had come home sick and let Lucy go. He turned away and covered his head with a pillow. I suddenly realized that I couldn't let him see me in this state and cursed myself for waking him up. I quietly prayed to God and hoped that this was a good sign. Sean was completely unaware of my late return, and he couldn't see me and the guilt that was probably clearly written on my face. I went downstairs, locked the house, made sure all the doors were locked, and went back upstairs. I needed to take a shower to wash away the traces of betrayal. I shuddered, remembering this whole sad night. I remember thinking for a while that it was Sean, and it was so good, but then the truth came back. I betrayed Sean. Standing in the shower, guilt gripped me, and I clutched my stomach. The wave passed, but I knew that everything would not be okay. After I finished my shower and got rid of the evidence of my infidelity, I lay in bed next to my husband and prayed passionately that God would forgive me and give me the strength to keep this secret for the rest of my life. I swore to God that Sean would never find out, and that I would do everything I could to be true to my marriage vows and fulfill my part of our agreement, both of which I had betrayed that night. This will never happen again. The next morning, I got up an hour early and decided to put on makeup and look extra attractive for my husband. I put on a nice blouse and skirt because Sean always liked me to look like that. I got JJ up, made him breakfast, then took him to the playroom. He'll be happy for the next few hours. I made coffee for Sean since he never ate breakfast and poured a cup for myself. I sat down and waited for my husband. Sean. I woke up the next morning feeling my best. I guess I was just exhausted and needed a rest. I shaved, got dressed, and went downstairs. Souldad was already on her feet and making coffee. I really needed a cup. What time did you get back last night? And by the way, where were you after the meeting? You didn't say you were going anywhere after. I was confused when I found Lucy here and you weren't there. I was a little angry because we never went out without telling each other where we were and how we could be found. I was with Judy and Carol after a sorority meeting. They called and wanted to go out for drinks and fun. I didn't think you'd mind. I left the number with Lucy. She seemed fine, no hangover or anything. It doesn't matter. You could have called and told me you were going somewhere. I thought we had an agreement. You're right, honey. I had to call and I won't forget again. Okay? She came up behind me and hugged me tightly. I noticed she had makeup on and looked like she was ready to go out. This was atypical, so I decided to ask a few more questions. What kind of makeup? What's going on with you? You left without telling me, and then you took a shower when you came back late, and now you're wearing makeup in the morning. What are you up to? I have never left questions unanswered simply out of politeness or political correctness. I wanted to know what was going on with my wife, and I wanted to find out now. Souldad looked at me in surprise at my outburst. She looked embarrassed and more embarrassed than angry. I would expect anger, but not embarrassment. Nothing's going on, Sean. I just wanted to look good for you as an apology. That's what makeup is. I was just with friends and forgot to call you at work. You're always in this place, and I didn't think you'd even notice, since I'll probably be home before you anyway. You're never home, and I just got bored. I had a babysitter, and she knew my number, so stop it. Listen, Sonny, we talked about this a year ago. You and I decided that we would do this with Jerry. You knew what I would have to do to make it work, and you agreed to support me. I thought that meant you would keep the house while I built the business. I know how much time I spend. Do you think I like working long hours, missing my son's first steps, his first words, his new discoveries? I miss him and you, but I expected that you will understand that I need to do this at least in the first year. Was I wrong? Souldad suddenly sat down on a chair. All her resentment was gone, and she suddenly looked like a little girl who had been caught doing something bad. She actually had a tear in her eye. I know what we agreed to. I know you're sacrificing to do this, and I know you're doing this for us. I'm so sorry. I felt bad and just did something spontaneous. But I have to tell you and let you know. You came home sick, and I wasn't even there for you. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I was just worried, and I let my worry turn into anger. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry, too. We hugged each other and agreed to try to keep each other more informed and in our circles. We kissed, and I went to work. I had been working for over 2 hours on one of the things I had going on at the time when I decided to take a break. I needed coffee but wanted to get some fresh air, so I decided to walk down Church Street to a coffee shop that was just a block away. Fresh air and hot coffee will give me the strength to continue, trying to save the broker I represented, who acted on a tip illegally, but may still live to continue trading. I grabbed my coffee and sat down on one of the wrought iron chairs around the table outside. The day was warm, and the sun was pleasantly warm. While I was relaxing, I heard a voice I didn't want to hear. Well, unless it's a hotshot lawyer. Hey, Sean, what's going on? It was Carol Jennings. Not one of my favorite people, but one of Souldad's friends, so I tolerated her. Hey, Carol, I was just out for some fresh air and coffee. Would you like to join me? Thank you, Sean. My pleasure. I'll grab a cup now. She went inside and soon came out with a latte. She sat down opposite me while I watched her. She was truly worth looking at. She was undoubtedly a beautiful woman. She was short with long black hair worn straight and a figure that would make most men admire her. No wonder she cheated. She probably had many offers. We exchanged small talk, her recounting her misadventures with the legal system regarding her divorce, and me making the obligatory responses. She told me about her difficulties while I enjoyed my coffee and watched her large breasts as she spoke excitedly. Everything was going well until she said something that caught my attention. How's Souldad? I haven't seen her in about a week. She said she was busy with committee meetings and we couldn't meet. I wanted her to join me and Judy last night, but she said she'd go straight home after her meeting. Tell her to call me soon, okay? I think I hid my shock well by saying I would pass on the message to Sunny and we parted ways. I went back to the office, thinking about what she said about last night. Sunny lied to me and she did it on purpose. Why? As a lawyer, I knew that lies are usually told to someone to hide something illegal or wrong in someone's eyes. In Souldad's case, it had to be something she did that I would consider wrong. By nature, I never leave things for later. I'm a lawyer, and I have to get to the point straight away. I had reason to believe that Souldad was lying, and she had to explain why. She had to do this tonight. I had no intention of delaying or playing games with private detectives or espionage. I was going to confront her and find out everything out in the open. Souldad. After Sean left for work, I was able to calm down and decide what to do. Obviously, he didn't know anything, so all I had to do was make sure he never found out. For now, only I knew what happened, and it had to stay that way. I spent the day with JJ and did some chores that needed to be done. I have never had too much to do as I am an organized person by nature. Of course, since Sean never got home before 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I had plenty of time to do everything that needed to be done. I usually made dinner for JJ and myself early, then put him to bed around 5 o'clock or 5:30 so he could get some sleep and be alert if Sean came back before his bedtime. JJ loved waiting for his dad, and Sean loved the time spent with him, putting him to bed around 9 o'clock. The day passed rather slowly, and I unfortunately had time to remember the previous night. I remembered dinner and some moments afterwards in the bar. My face turned red as I remembered that part. How could I be so drunk? I remember wine at dinner, and then what I thought was ginger ale, but must have been the vodka that Jason ordered for himself. He changed the drinks. I never drank strong alcohol because I couldn't handle it. I remember drinking what I thought was ginger ale and nothing else after parking. God, parking. I remember thinking about finding my car and then having a blackout. With this thought, I collapsed on the kitchen floor and cried until I was exhausted. I was humiliated, ashamed, and scared at the same time. Ashamed that she had come to this with a man who was almost a stranger. Humiliated by having done this in a public place. And scared that my husband, whom I love with all my heart, will find out. When I regained consciousness, it was already 5:30 and time to put JJ to bed. Just leaving his room, the phone rang. I pulled myself together and picked up the phone. It was Jason. Souldad. This is Jason. Jason Payton from the sorority meeting. Can you talk now? I was furious that he was calling me here. I never wanted to see that bastard again. I know who you are, and don't call me here or anywhere else ever again. We have nothing more to talk about. Goodbye. Wait, please wait. I just want to talk to you and apologize for what happened last night. It shouldn't have happened, and I think we both drank too much. I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry. It's a pity that I didn't go to your room. That's what you're sorry for. You weren't drunk at all, but I think you made sure I was. You poured me vodka, but I thought it was ginger ale. It's not true, and I don't regret anything that happened. I enjoyed it and would have loved to continue, but I know you're married. You have nothing to fear from me. I hope you understand that." At that moment, Sean walked into the kitchen, taking me by surprise. He had never come this early, so I was caught off guard. I felt the blood rush to my face as guilt overwhelmed me. I covered the phone with my hand and turned away from him to quickly end the conversation with Jason. "My husband is home, so please don't call me here again. Goodbye." I hung up the phone, trying to remain calm, and said, "Sean, you surprised me. I wasn't expecting you so early on Friday. I haven't even started cooking dinner. I'll make something right away. Why don't you make yourself a martini while I get to dinner?" "Sean, since it was Friday and Jerry and I never worked on weekends, I decided to leave work early and left the office just after 5. I'll be home by 5:30 and we could talk." I was angry and wanted to find out what was going on. I entered the house at exactly 5:30, and Souldad was talking on the phone when I entered. She looked up in surprise when she saw me and seemed out of her element. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but she covered her mouth with her hand, ending the conversation in a huff. She hung up and smiled at me. "Sean, you surprised me. I wasn't expecting you so early on Friday. I haven't even started cooking dinner. I'll get something ready right away. Why don't you make yourself a martini while I get dinner done?" She stood up from the chair and turned away. She was nervous and very uncomfortable. I didn't know why, but I was going to make it worse for her. "Forget about dinner. I want you to sit down. We need to talk." I just stood there and looked at her until she finally stopped and looked at me with concern. "What do you mean? What do we need to talk about? Why can't I start cooking dinner? Is something wrong?" "I want to talk about last night. I want to know where you were, who you were with, and why you lied to me about it." I walked over to the table and sat down, looking at her as she tried to process what I had just said. "What? What do you mean? I told you I was with Carol and Judy. We had a couple drinks, and then I came home. Why are you asking me this? First of all, you weren't with Carol and Judy. Second of all, you didn't have a few drinks, and you weren't alone. I want to know the truth, and I want to know it now. I'm not going to put up with this from you. I told you the truth. Why are you doing this? Once again, I know you lied to me, and if you don't tell me the truth now, I'll be forced to assume that you did something that you're ashamed to tell me. We'll be here until you decide to talk and don't tell me the truth. You can't do that. I haven't done anything wrong, and I won't let you treat me like that. If you don't believe me, it's not my fault. Okay, let's call Carol now. I'll put her on speaker and ask her where you were last night. Okay?" While she looked at me with wide eyes and an open mouth, I stood up and went to the phone. I took out the telephone directory she kept in the drawer under the phone. I scrolled through the names and found Carol's number. I started typing numbers when she pressed the end call button. She finally seemed to understand that I was serious and started talking. "I wasn't with Carol and Judy last night, okay? I was with a guest speaker I met at our committee. His name is Jason, and he's a consultant, and he gave a talk about how to raise money. He invited me to dinner, since there was one, and we just talked and had a few drinks, and I didn't keep track of the time, that's all. It didn't mean anything, really." She sat on the edge of her chair and waited for my answer. "That's not all. There was more. You were with him, and you had to lie to me about it. You came back late and took a shower. You never shower before bed. What were you trying to wash away or hide? And why did you have to lie if it didn't mean anything?" She looked at the floor and hugged herself with her arms. It was a sign of discomfort that she had used for as long as I had known her. When she was upset, she hugged herself. "Your lies tell me that you did something that you're afraid to tell me. I can guess what it was from your behavior. Since you took a shower, I assume you were washing off his scent and probably his touch." She started to say something, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Don't add more lies to what you've already said. It's clear to me that you're not going to tell me the truth, and I have no way of knowing what really happened. Once you start with a lie, trust is lost, and now I don't believe you. I'll tell you. Straight to you. If this happens again, I'll take JJ, and you and I will separate. I won't live with someone I can't trust." Souldad just sat there with tears in her eyes, but didn't say anything else. I left the kitchen and went to my office, which I used when I worked from home. I ordered pizza and grabbed a beer from the refrigerator in the office. Sunny rarely came into this room, and I kept a small refrigerator well stocked with beer and soft drinks. I worked for the next half hour while I waited for the pizza. I was angry, and work was the only thing that could make me forget for a while. Sunny didn't come in, and I noticed the phone was busy. She was obviously calling someone and wanted privacy. I didn't try to eavesdrop because it was clear when someone picked up the phone. However, this gave me an idea. I could listen to phones because they were my home phones. I will think about it. The pizza arrived, and I brought it to the kitchen. While I was sitting down to eat, Sunny came in and took a piece and sat down opposite me. I didn't say anything while I ate. I just looked at the clock on the wall. I didn't want to look at her. "You're wrong, you know. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of, and I would tell you if I did. You're making things up, and I don't know why. I told you the truth." She tried to convince me, but she wasn't very good at it. "Who were you just talking to? And who were you talking to when I came home?" "I just talked to Judy. We were supposed to go to a meeting together. I called to say I couldn't go. Just like you were with Judy last night. I'm sorry I lied about it, but she was the one I just talked to. Do you want me to call her and confirm it? Would that make you feel better?" "No, but it's sad when we both think I have to do this to believe you. When did I get home?" "Nobody. It's not important. Just something about the women's club meeting schedule. That's all." That's the problem with lying. Once you start, you have to keep going, and sooner or later, you'll make a mistake. I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned over and got out of bed. "Sorry, Sonny. I'm staying in the guest room tonight." I left her there, kneeling in bed, naked and alone. The next day was Saturday, and I didn't have any plans, but I couldn't stay home with Sunny. I wasn't going to be good company considering how I was feeling. I didn't think she'd be any more outspoken today than she was last night. Now she was defending her lies, and that's all she was going to do. I decided to go to the office and spend as much time there as possible. I did have work to catch up on after my sick day and short Friday. To my surprise, I got busy and the time passed quite quickly. It was already after 7 in the evening when I finally went home. Sunny was furious, and she gave me everything she had when I entered the house. She screamed and cursed, called me names, and was really mean to me. She was hurt by my refusal last night and my avoidance of her today. I let her talk and just tuned out. I took the beer and went to the terrace, but she followed me. She continued until I finally couldn't stand it anymore. "Sonny, if you continue like this, I'll go to the hotel. Decide for yourself. Either the truth or shut up." She looked at me with hatred, but fell silent. I called it a night, and this time went straight to the guest room to sleep. Sunny didn't try to stop me. She had apparently decided to accept that I wouldn't let her distract me. Sunday went the same way as Saturday, except I worked around the house and took JJ to the park and then to the zoo, spending as much time as possible away from Sunny. She didn't say much when I told her about my plans with JJ, and she didn't try to join us. I thought it was for the best. That night I slept in my bed, but Sunny didn't try to seduce me like she did on Friday, for which I was grateful. The thought of making love to her now did not give me any pleasure. Souldad. After a disastrous weekend, it was nice to have a day away from Sean to make some decisions. I sat in the kitchen and thought, it's time to take a step that will take Sean's attention away from me and put him on the defensive. I was confident that I could pull it off without making the situation worse. Sure, it was a risk, but it was a risk worth taking to save my marriage. It could have turned against me, but the chance was very small. I was going to give Sean an ultimatum tonight. He treated me very poorly, and although I knew I deserved it, he shouldn't have known about it. I had to play the role of the innocent wife, and he had to see that I was acting like an innocent one. Today was the time, and I would wait until he came to bed. There won't be any sex, but he will have to make a commitment to me and our marriage. I couldn't save him if he wasn't here or if he refused to talk to me. I was going to threaten to take JJ and move in with my mother. He knew that my mother would happily accept both of us, and he hated the idea, just as he hated my mother. There was never love between Sean and Mom, but I knew it was mostly her fault. It was a double threat for Sean. Losing JJ and letting him live with my mother. I was happy with my plan. Another brick in the wall I was building between Sean and the truth about my cheating. It will be a wall that he will never be able to break through. My marriage and my life depended on it. Sean. At work on Monday, I reviewed everything I had and finally had to admit that I had very little. I knew she was lying. I knew she was with a man. I knew she returned late, and I knew that she denied everything. It seemed like a dead end. I didn't know what to do next. I left it in the background while I did things. I threw myself into the task I was preparing, and time flew by as usual. When I realized what time it was already after 7:30. I decided to call it a day. As I got into the car, I thought about spending the evening with Sunny, but then felt uncomfortable with the thought. I decided to stop at the bar where I sometimes take clients and have a couple of drinks. This thought immediately lifted my spirits. 15 minutes later, I was sitting at the bar with a whiskey on the rocks, and the world seemed a much better place. This was more like the truth. I sipped my whiskey and watched people come and go until I noticed a beautiful young woman sitting next to me. I turned around and was amazed by her face. She was great. She was looking at me too, and I decided that I needed to say something. Sorry for staring, but you are a very beautiful woman. I hope you are not offended by my comment. I couldn't look away. I'm not offended, and thank you. A woman likes to be praised. She smiled at me, and I looked at her. She had long, wavy blonde hair that framed her face, icy blue eyes, and a face with high cheekbones and a straight nose, characteristic of Western Europe. She was, in a word, perfect. I almost felt awkward in her presence. I'm glad to hear that. What brings you here? I come here often, but I've never seen you. She smiled and looked me straight in the eyes and said, I work here and decided this place needed some flair. Hopefully, I'm adding a little class to the place. Woman of easy virtue. She was the one that a man hired for the whole evening, and she looks on his hand as if she belonged there. She could suit any occasion and approach his bed just as well at the end of the night. It could cost $1,752,000 per evening. Are you looking for company for this evening? If so, my name is Satine, and I would be very happy to join you. She placed her hand on mine, her touch light and seductive. I was excited, but I remembered who I am and what I have. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm happily married and have a beautiful little son named JJ. He's my life, and I'm happy with that. Having said this, I realized that it was true. Even with my problems with Sunny, I had a wonderful life and loved my son. But I had an idea. I looked at her and decided to take a chance. My name is Sean, by the way. Are you free for dinner and dancing and nothing more? Would you like to join me for dinner tomorrow night and maybe a club night after? I'd love nothing more. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, but finally smiled and told me the price. She was tall, but I thought it might be worth it. I was going to give myself an advantage over Sunny, and this woman was that advantage. No sex, but I wasn't about to let Sunny find out. It was important for my self-esteem to keep it professional. I was very serious about my commitment to my marriage, and I had no intention of breaking it, no matter what Sunny did or didn't do. I made a date for tomorrow evening after work. We were supposed to meet at 7 p.m. at a very nice restaurant in the city center. I'll call Sunny and tell her I have clients and I'll be back late. I fully intended to return very late and leave marks of what I had done on my clothes. Sunny had to get a dose of her own lies. It was a very busy and quiet Monday night at home. I wasn't going to make it easy for her to continue lying, and she wasn't going to give in to my silent treatment. It seemed like we were at an impasse. Because I came home late from the bar smelling of alcohol and cigarettes, Sunny was furious but didn't want to say anything. For my part, I regretted missing time with JJ, but not that I had less time with Sunny. I ate a cold dinner and went into the office until late. Again, I waited until I thought it was safe to go upstairs. When I came out of the bathroom, I noticed that Sunny was awake, but she wasn't looking at me. She lay with her hand over her eyes and was breathing very quickly. It was clear that she was preparing for something. I threw back the blanket and crawled under it. I turned off my light, but her light was still on. It can't work that way, Sean. You treat me like I did something wrong, but you have no proof that I did anything. I told you I was sorry for lying, but I was afraid that you would do exactly what you are doing now. I knew you would do this, so I tried to avoid it by telling little white lies. I didn't do anything wrong, but you refused to believe me. I listened to what she said. She was right that I didn't have proof, but I wasn't wrong to believe she did something. Her lies and embarrassment were too obvious to explain the dinner and the innocent kiss on the cheek. I just didn't know what else had happened or how to find out. I waited for what she would say next. If you can't treat me with dignity and respect as a wife, I'll make it easier for you. I called my mom today, and she suggested I stay with her and JJ until you get over this bullshit. I didn't answer because it took me by surprise. I never expected her to do this. Guilty people should break down, not take the initiative into their own hands. The choice is yours. Decide for yourself. And if I stay, it will be as your wife, and not as someone who cooks your dinner and does your laundry. I'm serious. Otherwise, I'll pack my things and leave before you'll come home tomorrow. Crap. This was not my plan. I had no choice. She had to stay for my plan to work. I couldn't make her feel the pain of my infidelity if she wasn't here. Maybe I could negotiate. If I agree to your terms, will you do something for me? If it's something reasonable, yes. She turned and looked at me for the first time. Will you make an appointment with Dr. Evans for disease testing? No, I won't, damn it. That's the same as saying I did something that needs to be tested for, and I won't do it. Then remain my wife, but don't expect sex from me. I won't take any chances. Since you felt it necessary to lie to me about what you did and who you were with, I told you that I leave it to your imagination. My imagination says that it does not want to become infected with something. Then I'll pack up tomorrow and JJ, and I will be gone in time for you to get home. Good night, Sean, and goodbye. She rolled over, facing away from me, without saying another word. Damn, damn, damn. She wasn't going to accept it. I had no choice. I didn't think there was anything to worry about, but I had to try. Okay, you win. No strings attached. Sunny didn't say anything else. She turned off the light and continued to lie, turning away from me. I fell asleep feeling better for some reason. Sean. I had a good day at work on Tuesday. I was really making progress in my business, and my mind was sharp, probably because I had a plan and was going to take action instead of sitting around like a victim. Nothing makes a lawyer better than having a plan. Besides, I was looking forward to dinner with Satine, a smooth name for a very smooth woman. I called Sunny just after lunch to tell her I would be late. She was unhappy but couldn't say much since we discussed my work hours after her failure on Thursday. I said I'll be back after 10 o'clock. She hung up with a bang. I always keep a spare shirt and tie in the office for dinners and late meetings with clients, so I changed before leaving the office. I planned to be on time and made it with a few minutes to spare. I was wearing a dark blue suit that would go with just about anywhere, and I looked like any other professional. Nothing special, but representative. Satine was waiting, as promised, right outside the entrance. She was wearing a beautiful light blue jacket over a white blouse with a very low neckline. She wore a thin gold chain with a single blue stone. Her skirt was black and reached just above her knees. Her heels were at least 3 inches, and her legs were magnificent. Her hair was pulled back into a bun, and long diamond and blue stone earrings accentuated her face. The whole picture was of magnificent simplicity. When she saw me and smiled, I was completely stunned. She simply amazed me with her appearance. Hello, Satine. You look beautiful this evening. Did I keep you waiting long? I tried to regain my composure by taking her hand. Hey, Sean, I just got here. Thanks for the compliment. You look good too. I smiled and signaled to Phyllis, the hostess, whom I knew from many dinners here, and she nodded. She led us to a nice table at the edge of the room, out of the traffic and overlooking the entrance, so I could see who was coming. It was my usual table, but today it didn't matter. She seated us and left, signaling to the wine steward. As dinner was in full swing, I discovered that Satine was a very accomplished table communicator. She could speak intelligently on any topic and responded to my comments accordingly. It was clear that she was very good at her job. We were talking about insignificant things when she finally asked me the question that had been on her mind all along. Now that we're here, why are we here? I know you want something from me, but I don't know what, and that's not normal in my business. I'm going to tell you, but first I thought we could enjoy some good food and good conversation. You're a delightful companion, and I enjoy your company. But you should know what I'm doing, and I'll tell you. I explained my suspicions about my wife, and that I wanted to convince her that I was having an affair because of her lies. I told Satine that it was important to make it hard for Sunny to find out the truth, but not too hard for her to miss the evidence. I hoped that she would become so angry that she would confront me and confess her adultery in order to force me to confess mine. When I explained this to Satine, I admitted that it sounded a little far-fetched even to me. But I was surprised when Satine said she thought it was a good plan. Do you really think this will work? I thought she could be a good judge, being a woman. If I were your wife, I would definitely be upset if I thought I pressured you into having an affair. Most women would be concerned. You are a very handsome man and very successful, and most women would consider you a good match. With a newborn son and beautiful home, you have everything women want. She said it with confidence and sincerity, but I remembered who she was and took most of what she said with a grain of salt. But I hoped she was right. We finished dinner and went to the dance lounge. I wanted to hug her for several reasons. First of all, she was beautiful and had a great body. Secondly, and more importantly, I wanted her perfume to stay on my jacket, and maybe a few blonde hairs wouldn't hurt either. She also made sure I had some of her lipstick left on my collar. Overall, it was a very enjoyable evening. It was around 9:45 when I decided to call it a night. I offered to take Satine home, but she preferred that I call her a taxi, which I did. I walked her to the taxi, and she kissed me before getting in. Same time on Friday. Meet me at Caesar's, if that's okay. Great. See you then. Good night, Sean. With these words, I closed the door of the taxi, and she drove off. I felt a little sad when she left. I reminded myself that this was just business, and she was a woman of easy virtue, not someone I would be interested in. I got into the car and drove home with mixed feelings. I pulled into the garage and entered the kitchen. The house was quiet, and I assumed that Sunny had gone up to the bedroom to read and watch TV. She did this most nights when I was out for late dinners and meetings. That's why I was so surprised when I saw her walk into the kitchen from the living room. Apparently, she was waiting for me. She just looked at me coldly and asked, "Did you have a good dinner?" She wasn't really interested in my answer as she walked over to the counter to pour me a cup of coffee. I always drank coffee after such meetings to counteract the wine I had drunk. I had 2 cocktails instead of wine tonight and really needed a caffeine fix. It was okay, but long as always, I'm glad it's over. I'll have to be there again on Friday for another session, but until then, it was just the guys and me. It was an obvious lie, and she should have noticed it if she was observant. I didn't do anything to arouse her suspicions, but I hoped she would notice the perfume. I think your boys were wearing perfume tonight. You smell musk and flowers. Is that something one of your boys was wearing? She asked sarcastically. I don't know what you're talking about. We weren't with women, so where did I get the perfume? Maybe it's something else, something on the chair or a napkin. I don't know. I took my coffee and went to the living room. I left my jacket on a chair in the kitchen. I noticed that Sunny did not immediately follow me, so I assumed that she was inspecting my jacket. If she does, Will she find a phone number on a piece of paper in her inside jacket pocket and maybe a few blonde hairs? If she calls this number, she will not receive an answer. It was a blind phone. One of my clients gave it to me. The phone was only used at certain times. I sat and waited until Sunny finally came in. She looked a little strange, but didn't say anything. I was drinking coffee and asked her about her day. She said very little and finally announced that she was going to read in bed for a while. I said I'd be up in a little while. I waited a reasonable amount of time and then stood up. I went straight to the bathroom and took off my shirt, folding it and throwing it in the laundry basket. I hung up my pants and decided a shower would be in order. Nothing unusual for me, and didn't she do the same? I thought it was a brilliant move on my part. Later, when I came to bed, Sunny made no attempt to initiate sex, and neither did I. I would wait for her to make the first move. I wasn't sure what I would do, but being human, I kind of knew. Finally, I turned off the light and fell asleep, satisfied that I had at least tried to force the issue. The next day, I was restless at work and wanted to go home to see if my plans had begun to plant seeds of suspicion in Sunny's head. I was able to get some work done, but left as early as possible. At home that evening, I noticed a very obvious tension with Sunny. I wasn't sure, but I assumed she found lipstick on the collar of my shirt. If so, she knew my story about last night was a lie. Now it will be interesting. I went into the living room to read the newspaper and have a drink while waiting for dinner. JJ was still sleeping, but I thought I could wake him up. I loved having dinner with him while he sat in his high chair, and he was always very active during meals. It would be something that would take my attention away from Sunny and keep my mind occupied rather than wondering what she was thinking. I told Sunny I was going to take it, but she didn't answer. She must have really been seething. Dinner was a dichotomy with silent Sunny and loud JJ, gloomy Sunny and happy JJ, Sunny stirring food on her plate and JJ eating it. I was very pleased with my dinner that night. I ate a hearty lunch and offered to help clear the table. Sunny muttered something and picked JJ up from his chair to take him to wash up. I smiled to myself as I collected the dishes from the table and took them to the kitchen. I was very pleased with myself. It was about 8:45 when I finally carried JJ upstairs to put him to bed. He was happy and tired and fell asleep immediately. I sat down next to his crib and just looked at him for a while. He was the best part of my world and the only part I could trust unconditionally. As I thought about this, I felt the sadness and uncertainty return. I've been without it for a while. I went downstairs to deal with Sunny. She was sitting in the living room when I came down and sat in my chair. I said nothing and reached for the newspaper. When I did this, she spoke. "Where were you last night?" No preamble, no timid questions, just an attack. If she was hiding something, I have to admit that she played it very well. "I was at dinner at Café du Quesnay with clients. I told you this last night. Why are you asking me now? Why was there perfume on your jacket and lipstick on the collar of your shirt?" "I already told you about the perfume, and maybe one of the waitresses left some lipstick there. We had a little too much wine, and maybe we got a little playful. It's okay. I came home to you, didn't I?" "I don't believe you. I think you were with another woman." She looked at me with eyes full of tears. It's time to play the card I was holding. "I think we both have secrets, don't we? You think I was with a woman last night, and I think you were with a man last Thursday, so we're even." I opened the newspaper and pretended to read. Sunny jumped up crying and ran from the living room upstairs to our bedroom. I watched her leave with a strange feeling. On the one hand, my plan worked better and faster than I expected. On the other hand, I saw the pain that my answer caused her, and I felt bad about it. I knew for sure that I was not having an affair, and I only had suspicions about her. She had much more clear evidence than I did, and she must have truly believed that I was having an affair. I began to reconsider my suspicions, but only for a second. I was convinced that she had done something that she was ashamed of and was hiding it from me. I will continue my plan until I get her to confess. I stayed downstairs until late at night before going up to the bedroom. As I had hoped, Sunny was fast asleep, so I had no reason to abandon her tonight. I went to bed satisfied and slept until the morning. I woke up feeling refreshed and determined to continue with my plans. I'll keep my date with Satine tomorrow night and let Sunny know that I'll be going out again with the same guys I was with on Tuesday night. This should really piss her off. Sunny made coffee and put out some bagels, but I didn't see her at all until I left for work. I guess she decided to avoid me after last night. I had a very bad feeling about her absence, but I couldn't worry too much about it. Thursday night was uncomfortable, but Sunny didn't ask any more questions about my meeting on Tuesday, and I didn't mention anything about tomorrow night. We ate dinner, I played with JJ and put him to bed, and we spent the rest of the evening watching TV without talking. Around 11 o'clock, I finally stretched and told Sunny I was going to bed. Me too. I don't want to be alone. See you upstairs. With that, she walked into the kitchen to finish cleaning up for the night, and I heard her lock the front door. Upstairs, I had just taken off my panties when I heard her enter the bedroom. I often showered before bed so I could be up and out as early as possible in the morning, and I was ready to go in when she hugged me from behind. I was surprised that she was already naked, and I could feel her breasts pressing against my back. This was the woman I loved, and she could still awaken my passions with just a touch. "I think I'll join you in the shower tonight. Is that okay with you?" she whispered in my ear. I thought about refusing, but this desire disappeared at the first touch. I turned to her and hugged her, pulling her towards me. "I don't mind. Okay, I want you to make love to me in the shower." This is how we usually behaved with each other. It was our little game. We told each other what we were going to do to each other and what we wanted the other to do. It was stupid, but it was our ritual, and we both liked it. We made love, and they finished immediately. What the hell happened? What did I do and why? I didn't have an answer, but I didn't want to meet Sunny right now. I took a towel and went down into the dark living room. I wanted to show myself this night more than usual, but my body betrayed me, and I didn't know why. I just sat there with my eyes closed and my hand on my face. I sat there, not wanting to go back upstairs to my wife. After about 15 minutes, I felt Sunny sit down next to me on the couch. She didn't say anything, but I felt her gaze on me. I had nothing to say. I couldn't explain what happened, so I was silent. "Sean, please don't be embarrassed. Honey, these things happen to men sometimes. It's nothing to be ashamed of or cause for anger. It's just stress we've both been under for a while. Okay?" "No, it's not good. It's never happened to me before, and you know it. And you know where all this stress you're talking about comes from. It started last Thursday when you did something you didn't want to do. I need to tell God who knows who. This is the stress I'm under. I won't discuss this with you. I told you nothing happened, but you don't believe me, and that's your problem. Get over it. Okay? Then we have nothing more to talk about, and sex is now out of the question. If that's what you want, fine." I got up and went upstairs to get my pajamas and went to the guest room to sleep. I slammed the door and locked it. I lay down on the bed naked and alone and finally fell asleep with strange dreams coming and going. I dreamed about Sunny and I making love one night in the living room while JJ was sleeping, and then I saw Sunny with another man whose face I couldn't see. At one point I was with Satine, and then both she and Sunny were there. None of my dreams made sense, and I woke up the next morning exhausted and angry. It was Friday. Sunny was downstairs with JJ when I came to get dressed for work. I remembered my dinner with Satine, so I brought an extra shirt and suit with me when I was ready. I took them to the garage and then went to the kitchen to get some coffee before heading out. I saw JJ in his chair and Sunny at the table helping him eat. She didn't look up when I walked in, but JJ waved the spoon at me with a smile. I walked up to him and kissed his head as he went back to his porridge. I grabbed a cup of coffee and, without wasting time trying to be polite, I simply said goodbye and left. I probably won't get home until 11 o'clock today, so I'll miss JJ, but it wouldn't be the first time. I left with doubts, but was determined to see it through. I was surprised by the tears in my eyes when I left the yard. Friday at work was a disaster. Jerry was in court. Polly was on site to deal with any emergencies that might arise while he was away, and Jenny was at home with her sick husband, so I didn't have time to think about anything while I was answering. For phone calls. Between calls, I tried to work on my business, but a lot of things didn't work out. I have to admit that it certainly took my mind off my problems for a while. Before I knew it, it was almost 3:30, and I hadn't even stopped for lunch. I talked Polly into going out to get us both lunch while I dealt with the phones. We were able to eat between crises, and the day passed without any of us going hungry. Finally, I was able to finish my business and could think about stopping. The phones have stopped ringing, Polly has left for the day, and Jerry is unlikely to return to the office. Since it was a little after 6 o'clock, I decided to change clothes and go for a drink. I was planning to meet Satine at 7 o'clock, so I thought it would be nice to have a drink before then. I was sitting at the bar, barely making it to 6:30, when Satine sat down on the stool next to me. I was surprised because I didn't expect her so early. She looked beautiful as always, and this time she was dressed more casually. I looked at her in surprise. "You're not dressed. Did something happen? Are you canceling our meeting?" She smiled and took my hand. She seemed completely calm, so I was confused. "No, Sean, I'm not canceling our meeting, just dinner. I thought I might find you here early, so I thought I'd give you an alternative to dining out. Would you like to come to my house for dinner? I ordered for us lobster and steak with a nice bottle of Chianti for later." She looked at my face, waiting for my reaction, and smiled cheerfully when she saw my surprise. Obviously, she planned this in advance. I thought about it, but found no reason to refuse, so I gladly accepted her invitation. We walked away hand in hand to a waiting taxi that took us to a very prestigious address. Apparently, this was where she lived, and I wish I could afford something as luxurious. We went up to her apartment on the 7th floor. It was quite a large place with an area of over 1,500 FT. I was impressed by the decor and taste in furniture. My house seemed ordinary compared to this. She showed me around, and we finally went into the dining room, where there was a small table already set for two. She asked me to sit down and went to serve dinner. Everything was great, and I ate like I was hungry. I noticed that she also ate well and did not deny herself anything. We finished, and we both sat back, pleasantly satiated. She led me into the living room where she served us coffee. I gave up dessert in favor of a glass of cognac after dinner. I wondered what would happen next. We didn't have to wait long, as Satine stood up and said that she was going to change into something more comfortable. She left and returned wearing a very thin satin robe that hid almost nothing. It was a soft peach color, and I could see a black lace bra and black thong underneath. She walked over to the sofa where I was sitting and sat down next to me. "All I can say is, wow, you look amazing." "Thank you, sir. I love compliments, and if you keep giving them, you'll get everything you want." She didn't smile, and the look she gave me made my temperature rise. I had to be very careful. "Satine, this is not what I was looking for, and you know it. What are you trying to do to me?" "I think you know very well what I'm trying to do to you. I don't think you're confused. We don't seem to have any communication problems. I told you I'm married, and I'm just trying to make my wife jealous so she'll admit to having an affair. If I do that, I'm no better than her. Why do you want to be better if she isn't? That way, you both start from the same place. You can either both admit or both deny. What's the harm if you just continue from there? It's a one-time thing with no commitment. You know who I am, so I won't be a problem for you." I didn't really listen to her reasoning. She was so beautiful, and I was only human, and there was no chance for me to resist. We made love. "Feeling better? I think you should. You were very good, you know. You should be proud of yourself. Not many people can last that long with me." She looked at me with a smile. For some reason, I actually believed what she said. Maybe that was part of her charm. She could make you feel good. Either way, I really felt good. "Do you want to take a shower now, or do you want to stay here for a while? If you want to stay here, I won't mind. The choice is yours, but I don't know what you told your wife about the time. I was momentarily surprised by the discussion about my wife until I remembered who Satine was. She was so good you could forget. I think I'll take a shower and then I'll go. Thanks for that, though. It was probably what I needed. I pulled her face to mine and kissed her softly. I headed to the shower. It was as impressive as the rest of the apartment. An hour later, around 10:30, a taxi dropped me off at the restaurant where I had left my car. I felt strange but good. I sat in the car for a few minutes, thinking about the evening. I was surprised at my lack of guilt. I cheated on Sunny with full knowledge of what I was doing. I felt no guilt or shame for what I did. I slept with a beautiful woman in her apartment, and I loved it. I started the car and drove home. As I pulled into the garage at 11:30 at night, I wondered what I would say to my wife. I wasn't going to tell her the truth because I wanted her to admit to her affair first. I wasn't going to back down until she confessed. I entered the kitchen from the garage and found a quiet house. The lights were off on the first floor and the kitchen was clean and empty. I expected Sunny to leave me coffee, knowing that I always drink coffee when I come home. It's strange that she didn't do this. Oh, okay. I walked into the living room, expecting to see Sunny there, just like the last time I went out. She wasn't there, and there was no sign that she was there. Anxiously, I went upstairs to our bedroom to look for Sunny, but she wasn't there. I walked into JJ's room, and he wasn't there either, along with his blanket and his favorite toy. Now I started to worry. Where is she and where is JJ? I looked around the kitchen and living room again, looking for a note or letter, but found nothing. I checked my phone, but there was no message. Where could she be? I went to the phone and called her mother. When she answered, I asked if she had Sunny. She just laughed and said no, but it would be nice if she was. She hung up. Now I started to worry. Sunny hadn't said anything about tonight before, but then I remembered that she didn't talk to me this morning when I left. She didn't give me any hints about what she was going to do. So what's now? Where could she go? I thought about Judy and Carol. I'll call Judy first. I found her number and called, but no one answered. Apparently she wasn't home, so I called Carol. Again, no one answered. Maybe they went out together. No, JJ was with her. I sat in the kitchen wondering what was going on. Could Sunny really leave me? But just in case, I checked her closet and found all her things in place. All of JJ's things were there too. So she didn't leave me. But why would she do this? And then I thought about what I had done and where I had been. A quick surge of guilt, but then it disappeared. Sunny couldn't have found out about this already, could she? Of course not. But then I thought about tonight. Could it be that Sunny knew about Satine and they planned what happened? Now I was starting to get paranoid. I made myself some coffee while I thought about it. I had no idea what she had done or where she had gone. I knew she was angry, but so did I. She lied to me and I lied to her, but I came home. Where is she? I started to get irritated. I thought again about Satine and what I had done. Again, I felt a pang of guilt that didn't go away as quickly as before. I actually cheated on Sunny without any reason other than my suspicions that she was cheating. Without facts or evidence, but my suspicion was enough for me to cheat on her. If I cheated on her, did that mean I didn't think fidelity was important? Maybe she cheated, but does that justify me? Two wrongs don't make a right, right? By this point, I realized that I had made a very big mistake. I deliberately cheated on my wife and jeopardized our marriage. If she cheated, I had a right to know, but that didn't give me the right to commit adultery as well. I made her believe I was having an affair to convince her to tell me the truth about her alleged affair. Why did I allow this to become actual adultery on my part? I had no answer other than weakness on my part. But really, wasn't I tempting fate by hiring Satine in the first place? Sex was her job, and she was good at it. I had to realize that I didn't stand a chance against her. My plan was now transparent, and I realized that I deliberately committed adultery as revenge, and not as a stupid plan to deceive my wife. I checked the time and found that it was already past midnight. Neither Sunny nor JJ were there. I lay down on the living room couch with my worries and uncertainty until exhaustion forced me to sleep. I woke up a few hours later to the warm rays of the sun on my face. For a moment, I couldn't figure out where I was until the events of last night came flooding back to me. I jumped up and tried to put my thoughts in order. I looked around, but saw nothing but my jacket on the back of the sofa. I sat down, holding my head until I could stand up. Slowly, he walked towards the kitchen, suddenly smelling the smell of coffee. I hurried into the kitchen and saw Sonny sitting at the table with a cup of coffee and JJ in his high chair with cereal. "Good morning, Sean. You better get some coffee. You look terrible. Where were you last night? I came home and both of you were gone. No note, no message, nothing. How could you do this to me? Where have you been? You didn't leave me a note or tell me where you were going. Why is this normal for you, but not for me? You knew I was working last night. I told you so. No, you said you were going out again with the same guys you were on Tuesday when you came home with perfume and lipstick. Do you want to try again?" Now she turned it on me, and I didn't know how to get out of it. I looked at her sitting there calmly after scaring the crap out of me. There was a slight smile on her face, not reaching the eye. It was Sonny, whom I had not seen before. "I'll go take a shower and change. We'll talk later." I went upstairs in complete confusion and with a feeling of guilt for deliberately cheating on Sonny. I had no idea what to do now. My plan to get her to confess had gone too far, and now I was more to blame than she was. I couldn't take a moral stand and wait for her to confess. I was stumped. I came down later feeling more human and decided to leave it as is for as long as possible, playing with JJ and doing some chores around the house. I needed time to sort out my confused feelings. Souldad. Sean's behavior made me angry. He had suspicions that I had done something wrong, but he had no evidence. I made a mistake, and I knew it, but I also knew that it would never happen again and that Sean would never know about it. There was no reason to tell him. It would cause him too much pain and would lead him nowhere. He doesn't trust me anymore, so confessing won't do anything. I was sorry, but because I had forgotten myself and found myself in a situation where I was seduced by a stranger who complimented me, got me drunk, and took advantage of the situation. I will never let this happen again, and I will remember that night for the rest of my life. I called Carol and said Sean would be busy, so I wanted. "I have dinner tonight and want to go to Caesar's." Carol didn't mind and suggested inviting Judy. I happily agreed, and we agreed to meet later. I told her I would bring JJ to her place so her niece could babysit him. I did this often, and she adored JJ. She said she would pick us up at 7. We went to dinner, and although we stayed until 9, Sean never showed up. I didn't tell Carol that I expected to see him there, so she didn't suspect anything. I still wanted to keep her out of it as long as possible. When we got ready to leave, I excused myself and went to the entrance to talk to the head waiter. I asked him if he had a reservation for Sean Ballard, and he confirmed that he had one, but it had been canceled. He mentioned that Phyllis might know more since she usually accommodated him and his company. I found Phyllis and talked to her. So Sean made a reservation which he then canceled without any notice to me. I wondered where he ended up and decided to play his game. I returned to the table and we all left. Carol asked about plans, and I said I wanted to stay with her for a while and invited Judy to join us for a game of cards. They both agreed, and we all went to Carol. When we arrived, JJ was already asleep, so I left him as he was while we played cards and Carol brought the wine. We ended up having a small impromptu party that lasted until 2 in the morning. I was very pleased when the phone rang around midnight. Carol went to look at the caller ID and said it was Sean. I shook my head and she just shrugged and went back to playing. Neither Judy nor Carol commented on my reasons, and they forgot about it as they enjoyed our time together. Around 2, we decided to call it a day, and Carol drove JJ and me home. When I entered the house through the front door, I saw light in the living room. I quietly looked in and saw Sean sleeping on the couch. Since JJ wasn't woken up, I walked past him and went upstairs to put him in his crib. I undressed and went to my bed, falling asleep almost immediately. I slept well until my usual time of 6:30, a little before JJ woke up. JJ and I were in the kitchen. He was eating his breakfast, and I was sitting with a cup of coffee when Sean walked in. He was clearly confused and angry. I greeted him, and he started yelling at me, asking where I was last night and why I didn't let him know where we were. We argued for a while until he gave up and went upstairs to change. I was trying to decide how to play this out. I wasn't going to confront him right away since we both wanted to avoid arguing in front of JJ. I had things to do and Sean stayed away from me most of the day. That's how we spent Saturday. Sean. By evening, I had calmed down enough to enjoy dinner with Sunny and JJ. Sunny seemed no longer in a fighting mood, and I also pulled myself together. Finally, I told her that I had dinner at Caesar's yesterday with clients, and we talked for too long, so I came home much later than planned. She simply nodded and thanked me for telling her where I was. Since I had finally lied to her about my whereabouts, I wondered for the 10th time if I really wanted to bring up the subject of her absence last night, considering that I was the one who trespassed in forbidden territory. I decided to wait and see what the evening brought. Sunny put JJ to bed right after dinner and went out onto the porch to watch the sunset and have a cup of tea. I waited a moment and then followed her. I sat down on the swing opposite her. I watched her face, hoping to see some kind of reaction, but was disappointed when she simply glanced at me and then returned to contemplating the trees at the edge of our yard. She didn't seem to want to continue the interrogation. Well, it's probably worth asking a couple of questions. Can I ask again where you were last night? I'm sorry I was angry, but I was really worried when I came home and didn't find you both. You understand, don't you? She looked at me for a second before answering. I hoped that my reasonable question would allow us to move forward in our discussion of responsibility. I had dinner with Carol and Judy last night. JJ was visiting Carol's niece. Is that okay with you? Of course. Where did you have dinner? At Caesar's. You know the place. It's where you often have your so-called business dinners with clients. It's where you said you were last night. Funny we didn't see you there. What do you mean so-called? I eat there often with clients. You can even ask Phyllis, the hostess. She knows me. I was there earlier in the evening, and we went to a bar downtown. That's why we didn't meet, maybe. I actually talked to Phyllis. She said you had a reservation for last night that you canceled at the last minute. She said you left the bar around 7 with a woman she thought was your client. A very nice client, by the way. Now she looked at me with a serious look. She caught me in a lie, and now I have to be very careful what I say. It was a customer, and she decided she wanted to go somewhere else. We left and had dinner at another restaurant. I just said Caesar's because that's where we met, and we had a reservation. It's funny that you told me you were going out with the same guys you were on Tuesday when you came home with perfume and lipstick. Do you want to try again? Now I've made 2 mistakes. I didn't see how to get out of this except to attack. Well, it seems like you're trying to make it worse than it is to make your night look more innocent. I didn't tell you it was a woman because you would have reacted the same way you did now. It was just business. I can imagine the business. Looks like you've decided to get back at me for what you think I did. Well, looks like you got your way. Looks like you got your revenge. Looks like we're even now. What are you talking about? I was just having dinner and drinks with a client. How does that make us even? Well, all I did was have dinner and drinks with the consultant. Doesn't that make us even? Isn't that what you said you did? She was smiling now, and I knew she believed I had cheated on her. She was now on solid ground, and I was left confused, trying to figure out what she had really done. I couldn't confess, and now I understood why she didn't confess either. Where does that leave me? I don't think so. I didn't cheat on you, but I think you cheated on me. I just don't know how to prove it. You know, Sean, I have the same problem. I think you cheated on me, but I don't know how to prove it. But wait, you were supposed to have dinner somewhere else last night. Why don't you tell me where, and I'll check. How do you like it? What should I do now? I hadn't been to any restaurant, and she knew it. She wanted me to choose a place, and if I made it up, I might be trapped in my own lies. It was time to step back and try to rethink. We didn't make reservations because we just grabbed a burger in a bar in the city center. She didn't want to go to a fancy restaurant, so we just went to a regular place. That's all. Just a normal dinner with a client who happens to be a beautiful woman. But she's just a client, and I don't mix business with pleasure. You know it. Okay, since we're on the subject, tell me her name and I'll call Jenny. She'll tell me all about your beautiful client. Jenny will be honest with me. And by the way, you called Carol's house at midnight last night, but Carol told me not to answer. Is that right? Yeah, I called there trying to find you and JJ. I even called your mother, but she just laughed at me. That probably made you happy. Not really. I didn't tell my mom about your stupid accusations and me. She would have freaked out, and I would never have heard the end of it. She would have demanded that I move out immediately, although I might still do it if you don't start being honest with me. How about you be honest with me? Do you want to start now? Okay, Sean, I'll put it this way. If I did what you did, I didn't plan it like you did. How do you like that? What the hell does that mean? What did you do? Same as you. What do you think I did? The same thing you think I did. This doesn't lead anywhere. If I admit what I did, she will confirm that she did what I think she did. But she's right. I did what I did intentionally and in full consciousness. She claims she didn't plan this. What does it mean? So you're confessing to the affair? If you admit that you had an affair, I will admit that you slept with another man. But if you say that you didn't, then I won't tell either. So you see, Sean, it's all up to you. If you want to know the truth from me, first tell the truth yourself. This is how it will be. Well, it seems you admitted that you had an affair. I think that's what you said. Tell me I'm wrong. It's up to you. If you want to believe I had an affair, I'll say I did, but you won't know if I'm lying. All you have to do is tell the truth about your affair with your beautiful client. Did you sleep with another man or not? Say it and we'll forget about it. Is it fair or not? No, it's not fair. You can't accuse me of something and then do the same thing to take revenge on me. No, it's not fair and it's not right. You're a lawyer, figure it out yourself. By this time, the sun had begun to set, and it was getting cool. Sonny stood up and walked into the house, leaving me sitting there confused and angry. I had no idea how to get out of this. I knew I was wrong. I cheated on Sonny, and what's worse, I did it on purpose. If Sonny was trying to tell me that she cheated on me, but not consciously, I did not understand what it meant, and the only way to find out was to confess to her that I cheated with a woman of easy virtue. Beautiful and expensive, but still a woman of easy virtue. As I watched the sun disappear, I finally knew in my heart what I had to do. With a heavy sigh, I stood up and went to the kitchen, where Sonny was sitting with a cup of warm coffee. I poured myself a cup and joined my wife at the table. No matter what you did, I believe that you did not plan to hurt me or our family. Whatever I did not plan to hurt you or our family. If this is true for both of us, and we are both sorry, we must forgive each other. Do you agree? Sonny looked at me very seriously for a moment. I think she was trying to understand if there was any catch in my words. Obviously, she decided that there was no catch and suddenly smiled. I agree. I forgive you. And I forgive you. We sat and looked at each other, and Sonny finally stood up. She looked at me with a loving smile. JJ will be sleeping for another hour or so. Would you like to take a shower with me? I think we should try again. Sounds good. Let's go. We ran upstairs like teenagers. Neither of us ever mentioned that moment in our lives again. We both accepted that we had made mistakes, but we moved past it and accepted that we never intended to do anything that would destroy our family. It's the eve of our 35th anniversary, and we both think our lives have been perfect. We love each other, and we have loved each other throughout our marriage. Sometimes I think about Satine with tenderness. I truly believe that she was smart enough to realize that this would be the result of what she did for me that night. I think she knew that the only way I would forgive Sunny was if I made the same mistake. She was right. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even click to the next one.